This will be every day until November 17th. Renew your smile with Grandpa's Dental. Grandpa's Dental offers cosmetic and routine dentistry. Visit grandpasdental.com for a location near you. That's grandpasdental.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Your KSL weather today will be sunny with highs in the upper 60s. Tomorrow will cool down a little with some clouds in the afternoon. Right now, it is 63 degrees and clear in Salt Lake City. I'm Dale Spaldings, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
The House of Representatives has revealed their plan to fund the government and prevent a shutdown before the November 17th deadline, just 3 days away. In fact, we are expecting a vote to take place in the House of Representatives probably during the course of the show today. So you're going to want to stay with us throughout the afternoon here on KSL News Radio. The interesting thing beyond the headline is that this continuing resolution will not be business as usual in Washington. The new Speaker of the House aims to change the conversation about how business in Washington actually works. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, we are standing by and watching for that vote to be called on the floor of the House of Representatives. Again, the countdown clock is ticking away. We're 3 days, 8 hours, and 53 minutes away from another potential government shutdown. And I don't believe for a nanosecond there will be a government shutdown. This is status quo for what has been happening in our nation's capital for many years now under both Republican and Democratic leadership. It has been exactly the same. And so what will be different this time? We knew this was going to be a short-term resolution when they resolved this just about 6 weeks ago. The question now is, what kind of continuing resolution do they do? Do they do the status quo and just do a big old package that nobody will read, add all kinds of billions of dollars to fund and expense certain programs in the government, and then do it all over again come January? This is a little different. And it could lead to a different conversation. So earlier today, the newly elected Speaker of the House gave a press conference about the new way Congress will fund the government moving forward. He said it will start with what he has been describing as a ladder or a stair-step continuing resolution.
The latter CR, the two-step CR, it's going to change the way we've done this. We have broken the fever. We are not going to have a massive omnibus spending bill right before Christmas. That is a gift to the American people because that is no way to legislate. It is not good stewardship. It's the reason we're in so much debt. We've gotten together. I believe there's going to be bipartisan agreement on that, and that will allow us to go through the deliberative process in good faith to do the appropriations process as it should be done.
So regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum, that is good news for the American people. If we can do this different, if we can change the conversation, that's actually a good thing. So what the Speaker is saying is, rather than just that one big omnibus bill that would really only kick the can to about 4 weeks from now, he's saying, no, we're going to do this in two steps. We're going to do something now to avoid the shutdown showdown on Friday, allow everyone to go home for Thanksgiving, by the way, just a little caveat for both sides of the aisle. And then they would come back and continue the process of doing each of those appropriations bills, and they would actually have time until April to get that done. So the Speaker talked about this need to simply change the way we're going about the process. We've gotten way too comfortable in business as usual when it comes to funding the government.
This is an important innovation, okay? As long as I've been in Congress for 7 years, we have governed by omnibus bills right before Christmas. It is a terrible way to run a railroad. And the reason that we're in such trouble with our federal debt is because Congress is addicted, obsessed with this deficit spending. Last year it was $1.7 trillion, with a few hours notice. And they added 100 or 200 billion extra sprinkled on top of spending that no one had ever actually vetted or gone through. We cannot do that anymore.
So that's an important thing that we always try to point out on this show is whenever we do these big, massive bills, there are always things sprinkled on, as the Speaker of the House described it, sprinkled on at the last minute that aren't vetted, that aren't run through a committee, that have no official oversight, that just get tossed in. And that's actually how you get $33 trillion in debt as a country. That's just how it works. So in a big change from regular order, the Speaker committed to start next year's process to fund the government on time and prevent another big, massive spending package.
The House Republican Conference is committed to never being in this situation again. I'm done with short-term CRs. We're resolved. So what that means is you're going to see in the beginning of this next year, we'll be walking and chewing gum at the same time. We're going to get the appropriations process running on time as it's supposed to be under law. Congress hasn't done that for as long as we can remember. But we're going to get back to that because that's good stewardship. The American people deserve it. And the debt situation we find ourselves in necessitates that.
Now, I've disagreed with Speaker Johnson on a number of things already in his short time as Speaker of the House. I actually think this is a good move. I think this is an opportunity to at least change the way we're doing things badly and maybe do them a little less badly. I know we shouldn't be celebrating less bad, but in the absence of good, I'll take less bad. This is a less bad way to get this done. And I do think it's encouraging. that the Speaker is saying, look, not only are we going to do this now, we are also going to begin that appropriations process first thing in January to make sure that when we get to September of 2024, that we're not having this same argument, this same fake fight, false choice, shutdown, showdown stuff that we've all become way too comfortable with. And in a glimmer of hope, in a very divided Washington, D.C., and I will note I did not say a deeply divided country, a deeply divided Washington, D.C., today Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, in a press conference, expressed optimism that the continuing resolution would be adopted and that the shutdown wouldn't happen this week.
When it comes to government funding, as I have long said, it has to be bipartisan. And right now, that's the path we seem to be on. I'm heartened, very cautiously so, that Speaker Johnson is moving forward with a CR that precisely omits the sort of hard right cuts that would have been non-starters for Democrats. When it comes here, if the House should pass it, and I hope they do, Senate Leader McConnell and I will figure out the best way to get this done quickly. Neither McConnell nor I want a shutdown.
So a little bipartisan effort there with McConnell and Schumer, both saying that they are encouraged. In fact, yesterday on the Senate floor, the Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, expressed his support for the continuing resolution that was being put forward by Speaker Johnson in the House of Representatives and committed to working alongside Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate, to bring it to the Senate floor and get it passed.
There's a lot of work left to do, aside from the remaining full-year appropriation bills. Glaring national security priorities continue to demand our attention and, of course, our southern border. House Republicans have produced a responsible measure that will keep the lights on, avoid a harmful lapse in government funding, and provide the time and space to finish that important work. I'll support their continuing resolution and encourage my colleagues to do the same.
So a little bit of encouragement there, and we're going to continue to watch that unfold on the floor of the House of Representatives. That could be happening in the next hour or so, that could be taken up, and a vote could be had there on the floor of the House of Representatives. It would then work its way across the building there in the state at the Capitol in Washington, D.C., over to the Senate side, where another vote would take place, and they'd get that to the president's desk. It would be nice if they did that today and tomorrow, enabled to not really do the shutdown, showdown, and the fake fight. So getting past the headlines on all of this, we'll continue to watch it. I'm actually cautiously optimistic that they will get this done in short order. But the more important thing will be the back end of this conversation, not the headline, but it will be what actually happens in January. Do they follow the process and have the discipline to get it done? Because that's the work the American people send back them. They're back there to do. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. President M. Russell Ballard.
Part of the history of this church, the great-great-grandson of Hiram Smith.
A life and legacy.
I've met with members of the church all over the world. Oh, how I love you. What a glorious experience that's been to look into your faces.
Remembering the acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on KSL News Radio.
It's that time of year for Macy's Harvest of Hope. This is an opportunity for you to make a difference. 1 in 10 Utah children struggle with hunger. You can help by participating in Macy's annual Harvest of Hope drive. It benefits the Utah Food Bank and all of those children that are struggling with food insecurity. And it's so simple. You can do it right at the register. You can make a donation. You can purchase a prepackaged bag of food. And as always, you can do it online. Just go to Macys.com and make your donation there. All the donations from Macy's Harvest of Hope go directly to Utah Food Bank to serve the children in our communities. You can donate today online at Macys.com or at any Macy's store anywhere in the state. Our goal is to raise $200,000 during the Harvest of Hope food drive to help the children in Utah who struggle with food insecurity. We always talk about it. Do something today that makes a difference. Macy's Harvest of Hope. You can go to Macys.com and do that right now.
Attention smart homeowners. You don't have to fall for flashy promises and companies that don't even prove their work. At Your Service Pros uses third-party verification software called MeasureQuick to ensure your new HVAC system is installed correctly. This ultimate game changer in the HVAC industry lets you, the homeowner, have proof of how your system was installed. At Your Service Pros utilizes our Bluetooth tools to upload all of your system's information into MeasureQuick. We rely on data-driven insights to properly commission, optimize, and fine-tune your HVAC system for peak performance, improving your family's comfort, lowering your utility bills, and extending the life of your HVAC system. With rebates and tax credits available totaling more than $7,500 on a dual fuel heating and cooling system, it is now more important than ever that your HVAC system be installed correctly. So call us today at 801-YOUR-PRO. That's 801-YOUR-PRO. Have the peace of mind of saving up to 50% on your new system and knowing it's installed correctly by calling 801-YOUR-PRO.
The Zero Res Food Drive is on. All this month, schedule a cleaning with Zero Res Carpet Cleaning, make a donation at the time of service, and you'll pay just $25 per room. Each year, Zero Res collects between 2,000 and 3,000 pounds of food during the food drive. And with your help this year, they could do even more. Zero Res is the only no-residue carpet cleaner in the area. With their ZR water, there's no soaps, no shampoos, and no residue left behind, so your carpets stay cleaner longer. Plus, with a no-residue cleaning, you don't have to worry about any nasty chemicals left behind either. Zero Res is safe for people, pets, and the planet. Schedule your cleaning today. The $25 sale ends today. You don't have to clean today, but you do have to get on the schedule. $25 per room for a Zero Res carpet cleaning when you clean in November and participate in the Zero Res Food Drive. But this rate is only good if you schedule before the end of the day today. For more info, restrictions, and to schedule, visit ZeroRes.com.
The annoying runny nose, the constant sneezing, the itchiness, and battle just to catch your breath. If you suffer from seasonal allergies, sinusitis, or nagging sinus congestion, there's a natural, easy-to-use solution that can help provide fast, drug-free relief. It's called Navage, and it uses powered suction to rinse your nasal passages in seconds. Millions of people use Navage daily to help provide relief from seasonal allergies and sinus congestion. Medications treat the symptoms, but Navage treats the problem at the source, flushing out the allergens and pollen trapped in your nose. Navage also helps wash out airborne bacteria, dust, dirt, and viruses quickly and painlessly, so you can get back to breathing clearly again. Say goodbye to sinus suffering and hello to better breathing with Navage. Navage is available at Walmart, Walgreens, Target, CVS, Rite Aid, and online at Navage.com. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
Utah Symphony's Film and Concert Series delivers full-feature films on the big screen as the orchestra plays the soundtrack live. Tickets on sale now at utahsymphony.org.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dale Spalding. First, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints will host the funeral for President M. Russell Ballard this Friday at 11 a.m. at the Tabernacle. Second, President Joe Biden is looking for an additional $6 billion in funding to combat climate change. Third, Utah is now just 7 days out from Election Day. Polls close at 8 p.m. on Tuesday. Right now it's 66 and clear in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. In the last segment, we talked about a little bit of optimism in our nation's capital as it relates to some bipartisan work that may just avoid our regularly scheduled shutdown, showdown, fake fight, and false choice in the halls of Congress. And again, we're continuing to watch that on the vote to fund the government. Should happen within the next hour. We're keeping our eye closely on that. But in another opportunity today for some bipartisanship in our nation's capital, and I always clarify that. Our nation's capital is deeply divided. The rest of the country is not. And so let's make sure we distinguish those two things. It's very different. But today in our nation's capital, there was an enormous rally taking place, even as we speak, in support of the nation of Israel. This rally has brought over 100,000 people onto the mall in our nation's capital, a rallying cry against the terrorism of Hamas and anti-Semitism right here at home. So what are our nation's leaders saying at the rally, and why is action like this so crucially important and so timely for us here in the United States of America? I want you to stay with us for the next 30 minutes here on Inside Sources. We're going to give you the latest about this historic march and moment in our nation's capital, how leaders from both sides of the political spectrum are coming together in unison to speak out against anti-Semitism and hate, to speak for the nation of Israel and its right to exist, and the important differences that we need to distinguish in all of that, and we'll do that over the next 30 minutes. So stick around as we march our way through this. So let's start with Senate Majority Leader, Democrat Chuck Schumer. He spoke at the rally, drawing on the lessons we must all learn from the history of anti-Semitism.
When the world ignored anti-Semitism in the last century, it led to the worst catastrophe in human history. 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust. Let us not forget history. History shows that Israel was almost destroyed in 1967 and in 1973. We must not let that happen again.
A very fiery Senator Chuck Schumer today on the mall there in our nation's capital. About 100,000 people rallied for Israel. Senator Schumer went on to recall his own family history and his experience going to Israel in the aftermath of the horrific attack on October the 7th.
The horrors of October 7th reminded me of what happened to my ancestors in Western Ukraine when the Nazis invaded. As the first-ranking Jewish Senate Majority Leader, in fact, the highest-ranking Jewish elected official in American history, I not only had a desire to go to Israel, I felt a special obligation to go. When I got off the plane, Israel was still shaken from what happened. I said to the Israeli people, Israel, we in America have your back.
That was the majority leader in the Senate, Democrat Chuck Schumer, of course, the highest-ranking Jewish elected official in the United States government, leading the Senate there. On the House side, the leader of the Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries, also spoke and addressed the urgent need to combat anti-Semitism here at home and around the world.
We must also decisively address the cancer of anti-Semitism with the fierce urgency of now. An attack on any of us is an attack on all of us. And we are going to do everything possible to stop the anti-Semitic attacks against our Jewish brothers and sisters.
So let's continue with Hakeem Jeffries. He went through the long history of persecution and expulsion that the Jewish people have endured throughout history, linking the most recent attack from October the 7th as part of that history.
For centuries, Jews have been persecuted, brutalized by anti-Semitism, and violently thrown out of country after country. The Jewish people were violently expelled from countries all throughout Europe. The Jewish people were violently expelled from the Middle East. The Jewish people were systematically murdered by the Nazi regime. The Jewish people were violently attacked by Hamas on October 7th, resulting in the largest loss of Jewish life in a single day since the Holocaust. So we are here, more than 100,000 people strong, to unequivocally declare never again.
So that was Hakeem Jeffries, a minority leader for the Democrats in the House of Representatives. And then they combined with their Republican colleagues. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, on a very busy day for Speaker Johnson, also went out onto the mall in front of these 100,000 people there in the nation's capital. Speaker Johnson described the harrowing experience that lawmakers had watching the film taken of the October 7th attack and expressed solidarity with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
This morning we watched the horrific film that was produced by Hamas from their own cameras as they committed the assault. It's unspeakable. The auditorium was full of Republicans and Democrats in the House, and they wept as we watched the film together. Most couldn't sit through it. These Israeli hostages were kidnapped in their homes by barbaric Hamas terrorists for simply being Jewish and living in Israel. As Prime Minister Netanyahu says so well, this is a fight between good and evil, between light and darkness, between civilization and barbarism.
So that was from Speaker Mike Johnson. He went on to give a clear message that this march in our nation's capital today, 100,000 strong, really sends a message not just here at home, but all across the world that America stands with Israel.
We can and we must do more to stand with our great ally and friend. And it is my hope that this gathering today serves as a reminder to the entire world, but also to those within our own borders, that the United States stands proudly with Israel and the Jewish people forever.
And then finally, we want to go to Republican Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa. She spoke in opposition to the anti-Semitism being expressed on America's college campuses.
We will not sit quiet as anti-Semitism is being promulgated in classrooms and campuses around the country. The brutal reality of Hamas cannot be diminished.
So some very interesting comments and speeches that were delivered today on the mall there in our nation's capital, 100,000 strong. And I think it's really important to point out, and we're going to stay with this conversation throughout the rest of this hour. We'll actually go to Washington, D.C. coming up at 1:50 for one of our inside sources who was at the rally, who is still there on the mall, to give us some perspective in terms of what that felt like there live in our nation's capital. We're also going to talk to a rabbi and an imam, some cuts from some sound that they've been doing as they've been trying to work through this combination of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia and having a different kind of conversation. That'll be coming up at 1:35, so you want to stick around for that part of the conversation. One of the interesting things in the people that I've been speaking to, both those who were planning on attending the march and the gathering there on the mall in Washington, D.C., and those who were just watching or participating from other places, is that they wanted to be very clear that this standing for Israel today was not about standing for a certain brand or type of Israeli politics or for the current Benjamin Netanyahu administration. That's not what it was about. That it was about the right of Israel to exist as a state, that they should not be under threat of those terrorist groups who are committed to their annihilation and destruction, that Israel has a right to exist, they have a right to defend themselves, and then importantly, that the ability to have compassion for all and to not conflate the condemning of evil. Because as we've talked about on this show, if we continue to do that, we actually lose our ability to have real compassion, true compassion, authentic compassion, not just the surfacey kind of stuff. And so those are all crucial parts of that conversation. So I hope you'll stay with us over the next 30 minutes as we continue to look at this march in our nation's capital against anti-Semitism, standing for the state of Israel and its right to exist, and then a whole host of other conversations that we need to get to in this moment, not conflating everything as being equal, but surely important conversations that we need to get to as a country and as a society. We'll go ahead and step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news, but as I said, stay with us. Coming up, we're going to share some insight from a Jewish rabbi and an Islamic imam that have linked arms to help fight religious hate in every form. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dale Spalding. KSL's top story this hour, a search and rescue is underway in the mountains near Old Squaw Road. Utah County Sheriff's Office confirmed a plane crashed there. We have a reporter on the way and we'll provide details as soon as we get them. American Indian and Alaska Native relatives account for over 5% of all murder victims, but they make up less than 2% of our population. A task force created 3 years ago to improve these numbers is being heard in a committee meeting on Capitol Hill today. KSL News Radio's Hugo Ricard-Bell has more.
The takeaway from today's meeting is communication between Indigenous tribes and law enforcement is vital. And whilst it's improved over the last 3 years with this task force, this space could still improve. Director of Indian Affairs in Utah, Dustin Jansen, told me a database that helps different jurisdictions keep up with fresh information would also be a step in the right direction because many of these crimes cross different county lines.
Indigenous people make up 1.5% of Utah's population, but over 5% of the murders. Funeral arrangements are now set for President M. Russell Ballard, acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The service will be held in the Tabernacle on Temple Square on Friday at 11 a.m. The funeral is open to the public for ages 8 and older. There will not be a public viewing. You'll be able to hear the services live right here on KSL News Radio. Your money at this moment, the Dow is up 570 points, NASDAQ is up 350 points, and S&P 500 is up 95 points. Coming up, temperatures will reach the upper 60s today. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
We have enough people running around Broadcast House at 4 in the morning to field a football team.
Producers, reporters, the traffic team, and us.
This is Tim and Amanda.
Join us each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
You know that when we talk about Hercules Credit Union, it's always about growing stronger together. That's always been their focus all the way back to 1946. And right now, they're going to show you that you are special. A lot of people tell you you're special, but very few actually show you. And Hercules Credit Union is going to do that in an extra special way. If you open a new checking account with Hercules Credit Union, they'll upgrade you to a premier checking account free of monthly fees of any kind. You also get all the benefits of ultimate identity theft protection, travel benefits, cellular care coverage, and all kinds of perks that go along with that. It's so simple. It's so easy. Just open a new checking account at Hercules Credit Union. They'll upgrade you to a premier status, no fees involved in that, and they will show you what it means and what it looks like to actually be treated special, because that's what they do at Hercules Credit Union. You can find their locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, Riverton, and Salt Lake City, or you can always find our friends at Hercules Credit Union online at HerculesCU.com. That's HerculesCU.com.
Imagine how inconvenient your life would be without power. No lights, no refrigeration, no heating or cooling, and no electronics. But with a Generac home standby generator, you'll have the power when you need it most. Generac generators automatically provide backup after sensing a power outage, so your life goes on uninterrupted. Schedule a free quote today with Genco Generators, your premier Generac service dealer in Utah. Call 801-295-0872 or online at gencogenerators.net.
Hello, this is former Utah Governor Gary Herbert. Salt Lake City is fortunate to have a mayor who cares more about results than partisan politics, and that's why I've endorsed Mayor Erin Mendenhall for re-election. We don't always agree on policy, but she's always willing to listen and to collaborate. Erin is crisis-tested and has proven to be a strong leader for Salt Lake City. I hope you'll vote Erin Mendenhall for mayor and return your ballot today.
Learn more at erinmendenhall.com. Paid for by Erin Mendenhall for Salt Lake City.
Be advised, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save 40 to 80% on a hot tub and swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Be advised, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save 40 to 80% on a hot tub and swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates this weekend only. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Friday, noon to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
Well, for those traveling on downtown's west side, we do have a crash with possible injuries called out. This is Indiana Avenue at Navajo Street. Now, this is east of Redwood Road. Just watch for crews at the scene, and it's north of Glendale Park. But if you're traveling any of the Valley freeways, you are good to go with no problems. Witness the magic of the Nutcracker, opening December 8th with the timeless music of Tchaikovsky, performed live by the Ballet West Orchestra. Tickets at balletwest.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. This week we're looking at a high of 67 for Tuesday, 65 tomorrow, and then dipping back down to those November temperatures starting Thursday. Right now it's 66 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. I'm Dale Spalding, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
If you're just joining us, we've been spending this hour of the show really focused on what's happening in our nation's capital today. We are continuing to keep our eye on what's happening on the floor of the House of Representatives as they get serious about being serious about funding the government before the Friday deadline. So we'll keep you up to date with all of that. And some rare bipartisan moments with both Democrats and Republicans in both the House and the Senate saying they're optimistic that they can come together, fund the government, and to do it just a little bit different. So we'll keep you up to date on that. And then, of course, also happening in our nation's capital today, 100,000 plus have been marching and rallying on the Mall. A wide range of speakers we listened to in our last segment from both ends of the political spectrum, talking about anti-Semitism, talking about how do we overcome hate, how do we stand with Israel and their right to exist as a state, and how do we have a different kind of conversation there. And so we're going to get to the different kind of conversation right now in terms of what that might look like and sound like across the country. And then coming up at 1:50, we'll actually go to one of our inside sources, Joe Khalil, who's there at the rally on the Mall in Washington, D.C. We'll get his perspective from what that looked and felt like live there in our nation's capital. And so I want to turn to how we have a different kind of conversation, especially as it relates to religious hate. A Jewish rabbi and an Islamic imam have actually linked arms in a joint cause of coming together to fight religious hate. Rabbi Mark Schneiders, president of the Foundation for Ethnic Understanding, and Imam Shamsi Ali of the Jamaica Muslim Center have teamed up to combat anti-Semitism and Islamophobia on college campuses. They met with Muslim students at College of New York's Lehman College and Jewish students at Baruch College, John Jay College, and Pace University. That was according to CBS News. Late last week, on Friday actually, on MSNBC, Rabbi Mark Schneiders summed up their message. Again, a Jewish rabbi and an Islamic imam linking arms. And here's how Rabbi Schneiders said, this is our message for students, for the young people on our college campuses today.
Well, we delivered a very simple message. Cherish freedoms, protest, demonstrate. Do not cross the line. No violence, no intimidation, no confrontation. We can agree to disagree without being disagreeable.
So having the right kind of conversation and the right framing, of course, is where real conversations and true understanding actually begin in this country. Imam Shamsi Ali explained how they believe Jews and Muslims can and must come together.
The way to come together is realizing that we Jews and Muslims do not only have a common faith, but in fact we have a common fate, destiny. And the most, either you like it or not, the most two identical religions in the world are Judaism and Islam. And more importantly, for me, as an imam, and I think for the rabbi as well, Islamophobia and anti-Semitism is just the two sides of the same coin.
I think that's such an important component to all of that, that it really is two sides of the same coin, that whether it's anti-Semitism or whether it's Islamophobia, they are two sides of the same coin. And learning to get past that and figuring out how do we come together because, as he rightly pointed out, Imam Ali said that, look, Jews and Muslims don't just have a common faith, they have a common fate, a common destiny. And I think that's actually true of all of us. If we don't see the divine identity in each other, then it's so much easier to have contempt. It's so much easier to get to hate. It's so much easier to get to violence. It's so much easier to get to indifference. But when you realize the interconnectedness of it all and of us all, then you can have a very different kind of conversation. Imam Ali went on to say that hate towards Muslims and Jews typically doesn't come from Muslims and Jews.
They don't realize that actually both of us, Jews and Muslims, are victimized by both Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. And I consider this a common threat for both of us. And the threat that we Muslims are facing, Islamophobia, it's not coming from the Jewish people. Vice versa. The threat to the Jewish people is not coming from the Muslims. The person who killed the boy in Chicago is not the Jewish people, it's not the Jewish. So I think we must challenge ourselves to build these relations with Jews and Muslims because we are really on the same boat. We have even more commonality.
I love that. We're all in the same boat. And if we're firing at each other, the boat sinks, and all of us with it. Rabbi Schneider called for leaders of both faiths to stand up, not just for themselves, but more importantly, to stand up for each other.
And I can tell you that when Trump was president and he legislated the anti-Muslim ban, who were the great champions for the Muslim community? It was the Jewish community. Well, you know what? Today, we need American Muslim leaders to protect and to defend Jews, Jewish students on college campuses.
And that's our commitment.
And so that shared commitment, that it's one thing to stand up for your friends. It's a whole other thing if you're willing to stand up for those that you disagree with or those who are different than you are. And yet that's the real test. It's not that hard to be nice to your friends or to stand up for your friends. But if you have someone you disagree with or someone who looks different, acts different, lives different than you do, are you willing to stand up for their rights, for their freedoms? Bigger test, more important test, I think, for all of us. Finally, Imam Ali concluded by reminding everyone that we're all human and have more in common than we might think.
For me, anti-Semitism is my fight, as he have taken Islamophobia as his fight. You know, we advance our common humanity, that despite of the existence differences that we have even more in common. And at the end of the day, we are all human beings. We deserve dignity, we deserve respect, we deserve peace, reconciliation. And I think this world is shared by each and every one of us. We need just to live peacefully. And that's our aspiration, that's our dream.
There's so many things to unpack in there. I love the way the Imam phrased that. Imam Ali said that anti-Semitism is my fight. Just as he said that Rabbi Schneider had taken up Islamophobia as his fight. So think about that. Taking up the fight of another, that's an extraordinary thing. And as the Imam rightly pointed out, that's how we advance our common humanity and recognizing that we actually do have far more in common than we think. And of course, that real conversation begins when we recognize the dignity and even the divinity in everyone around us, of all kinds. And so to recognize that in a moment like this, that the current war that is going on in the Middle East, it is shared by all of us all around the world. This idea that we can live peaceably together is a dream and a fight that we all need to lean into and be engaged in. And to recognize that it is up to all of us to do what we can. It doesn't mean we all have to do everything, but we can all do something today. And that's the test. Will we do something, or will we passively sit back and point fingers or place blame or shrug our shoulders and say, it's not my job, nothing I can do, not my fight, those aren't my friends? Or will we do as the Imam and the Rabbi just demonstrated to us and link and lock arms in our shared humanity, dignity, and divinity and make their fight our fight my fight, their rights, their freedom, their future. We're all in this thing together, and that's the thing we all have got to remember. All right, we're going to step aside for a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go back to our nation's capital. We'll go live to our inside source, Joe Khalil, from News Nation, who is in Washington, D.C. on the Mall. Will give us some perspective in terms of what's been going on, what it looked like from the crowd. Coming up next on Inside Sources. Stick around.
Every year I tell myself, Doug, you can't procrastinate. It's time to get into Burt Brothers. Make sure that the vehicle I drive, the vehicles that Dee drives, and our family vehicles are all ready for winter. And Burt Brothers, boy, as these temperatures start to drop, soon the snowflakes are going to fall, the roads are going to be slick. You need peace of mind on Utah's snowy roads. Winter tires from Burt Brothers, they make all the difference. You can drive with confidence. Specialized tires designed to grip the road in the harshest conditions. They give you better traction, handling, shorter braking distances, and the gift of safety for you and your loved ones. And right now, save up to $130 back on 4 Bridgestone Blizzak tires through December 16th. That's only at Burt Brothers with complete auto care. They can take care of it all. Make sure you're not off on the side of the road with a little help from your friends at Burt Brothers. And there's a location for Burt Brothers near you.
I'm so stressed about my business not being ready for the holidays.
Ooma.
What is that? Meditation?
I'm recommending the Ooma cloud phone system with auto attendant and more than 35 features.
Ooma?
Yep. Switching to Ooma is a cinch. Starts at $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Now you're feeling it. Visit Ooma.com. That's OOMA.com to learn more. Ooma. Smart communications for the smarter business.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking. Now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
If you are new to Medicare, you are not alone. Millions of Americans qualify for Medicare plans each year. So whether you are a Medicare rookie or a pro, now is the time to enroll. The Medicare annual enrollment period is ending soon, so it's the perfect time to finalize your 2024 healthcare plan. Cigna Healthcare Medicare expert Gary Culp is here with more.
That's right. The deadline to enroll is quickly approaching. Medicare's annual enrollment period ends on December 7th. You will want to make your decisions now to ensure you get affordable, quality care in the year ahead. With Cigna Healthcare Medicare, finding Medicare coverage is easy from start to finish, with flexible coverage options.
It can be confusing to find the right plan with so many choices out there. It's important to know your specific health needs and to research options so you can get the most from your Medicare coverage.
With help from Cigna Healthcare Medicare, choosing the right Medicare plan couldn't be easier. We are trusted by millions of customers, so you can feel good about finding the right plan to promote your vitality all year long.
To learn more, visit CignaMedicareInformation.com.
At Intermountain Primary Children's Hospital, we made a bold promise to build the nation's model health system for children. Join us in realizing our vision for the future of pediatric care. So together, we can expand primary children's impact and ensure every child has access to the right care at the right place at the right time. For a century, Primary Children's has kept the child first and always. Help us continue to do so for the next 100 years. To get involved, visit primarypromise.org.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
KSL offers the best daily newsletter in the state. It's the 3 things you need to know. Every weekday, we deliver quality and relevant content to your inbox. No ads, no spam, just the 3 things you need to know to be informed about the world around you. Subscribe today. Visit KSLNewsRadio.com or text the word inbox to 57500. That's inbox to 57500.
Bill Riley here with University of Utah head football coach Kyle Whittingham. Now tell me, Coach Whitt, what's your philosophy on a winning team?
I believe the key to winning is a strong offensive line. When the linemen do their job, nothing gets through to the quarterback, so he can do his job.
Well, what happens if the linemen don't do their job?
Ouch. You know, Bill, I recently learned that kidneys work like linemen for your body. When your kidneys work, They block poisons and chemicals from your blood.
Coach, I've heard that 1 in 9 Americans have some form of kidney disease. What can we do to fight back?
Join me, Coach Kyle Whittingham, and be part of the winning team against kidney disease. Donate your used car or truck to the Kidney Foundation. Your car will be towed for free, and you'll get a receipt for a tax deduction. Tell them how to do that, Bill.
Donate your car to the Kidney Foundation today and make your car a kidney car. Cars to save lives. Call 1-800-TOW-CARS. That's TOW CARS. Cars with a K. 1-800-TOW-CAR.
Every year, the National Kidney Foundation helps individuals and families affected by kidney disease. Help them out by making your car a kidney car. Call 1-800-TOW-CARS.
Be advised, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save 40 to 80% on a hot tub and swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Be advised, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save 40 to 80% on a hot tub and swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates this weekend only. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Friday, noon to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
We're going abroad for the first time in years. To Spain. So we started using Babbel.
And started learning Spanish fast.
With Babbel, you can start having conversations in another language in just 3 weeks.
¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo te llamas?
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind.
In just 3 weeks, we're starting to have conversations in Spanish. Gracias, Babbel.
Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
Life is full of change and uncertainty. Sometimes it feels impossible to know what to focus on or who to listen to. In his new book, Heart of the Matter, What 100 Years of Living Has Taught Me, President Russell M. Nelson sheds light on how we can find meaning in mortality, how to focus on what really matters. Pulling from a century of life experience as a surgeon, father, and prophet, he reassures readers that there really are unchanging truths that can anchor us in an ever-changing world. Get yours today at a Deseret Bookstore or DeseretBook.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dale Spaulding. First, a search and rescue is underway in the mountains near Kive Road, where Utah County Sheriff's Office confirmed a plane has crashed. Second, several cities in Utah are in the top 10 for biggest drops in housing prices across the U.S. Third, we're now just 7 days from Election Day here in Utah. If you're planning to vote by mail this year, your ballot must be postmarked by Monday. Right now, it's 66 and clear in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and we're continuing our coverage. We've spent the last 30 minutes or so talking about what's been going on in our nation's capital, where there is division and where there's some very interesting unity. And one of those places today was on the Mall of our nation's capital. Over 100,000 people rallied to show solidarity and support for the nation of Israel and stand against anti-Semitism. And as promised in this segment, we wanted to go live to Washington, D.C., to someone who's there on the ground. Joe Khalil is a News Nation Washington, D.C. correspondent. And Joe, it's been a busy day for you. I know you've been running from the mall to the Capitol and everywhere in between. But give us some sense of the march today, the rally there on the mall, and what you sensed and felt as you were out there amongst the crowd.
Yeah, I spent the morning and about an hour and a half around the rally as people were coming in. I mean, it was huge. It was as advertised when it comes to numbers. Obviously hard to count, but it felt like tens of thousands of people that were out there for sure. Strong numbers, strong sense of unity. And I was asking people, what they felt being in Washington now, what their fears were, and, potentially about the Biden administration's response in Israel right now. Many of them, the consensus I got was they were happy with the way the Biden administration has been handling this and the tone that the president has taken. But they realize, many people do, that as the death toll in Gaza continues to rise continues to get higher, and we hear stories and reporting about civilians, women and children dying, there is a concern that, calls for ceasefires are getting louder, and that, that pressure may start to build up and actually have an impact on this administration. Aside from that, there was this real strong sense of unity of just people coming together and saying, we stand generally against terrorism and stand for the hostages specifically who were there, those who died, those who lost their family members. And there was real bipartisan unity when it comes to lawmakers. Speaker Mike Johnson was up on a partisan issue or affair at all. You had a lot of people from all across the spectrum working together and showing that solidarity with those who showed up today.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part. And I thought it was also important that everyone that I spoke to that was either going to be there on the ground or that was supporting from other places, that this really was about Israel's right to exist, not necessarily the Netanyahu government or any particular political party or action going on inside of Israel, but the right of the state of Israel to exist, as you pointed out, being against Hamas and the holding of those hostages, that was an important thing. And then give me a sense in terms of, I know there was a lot of security around the event, but also making sure that this was a place where a conversation about anti-Semitism and against hate in general seemed to be a big theme of the day.
Yeah, I think reasonable minds all across the United States, no matter what you feel about where the conflict is right now, I think should be condemning, I think it's fair to say, should be condemning anti-Semitism in all forms in the United States. And you had a lot of people who I was talking to giving me really personal anecdotes. One, young man drove up from New York and said when he got to within about 30 miles from D.C., he stopped for gas, and he had someone tell him, oh, they let you in here, meaning Jewish people. They let them in. It was just really disgusting examples of anti-Semitism. And unfortunately, too many people who were at that rally had personal experiences with it. And so this was a general condemnation of that kind of really ugly and disgusting rhetoric and that hatefulness. And, there is an obvious sense that you can disagree about, the Netanyahu government in Israel, and that's totally fair to criticize them and be critical of a leader without being anti-Semitic and anti-Jewish. And again, it was just sad to hear people's personal stories. There were many people who were there who told me they, considered not coming because they feared there would be some kind of risk to their own personal well-being just being there holding the Israeli flag. And that's definitely something that, again, no matter what side of conflict you happen to be on or where your sympathies are, you don't want to hear and you don't want to see in the United States, people fearing for their lives in that way.
No question. Joe Khalil, News Nation's Washington, D.C. correspondent. Joe, thanks for carving out some time for us on a very busy day in our nation's capital. Thanks for your perspective.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Again, that's Joe Khalil from News Nation, and he was there on the ground. He's actually in the Capitol now. Obviously, a lot of other things going on that we're going to continue to watch as it relates to the House of Representatives. We'll keep you up to date on that. But as we close out this segment of the show, and as we've gone through the last 45 minutes talking about where there is some real unity, this is one of those places. And one of the things that I've been watching and kind of intrigued by today is just how close things get so quickly. There were so many people there on the mall in our nation's capital who knew someone, who had a relative that was either murdered or kidnapped or had been harmed in some way. And so while the attack is 6,000 miles away, it's still really close and personal, which tells you a lot about who we are in the United States. And the question about who we are in the United States will be demonstrated by what we're willing to do to call out hate everywhere. That wraps up hour number one of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news. When we come back, the Supreme Court has officially adopted a code of ethics. We'll talk about what that is, what that means, and what comes next. Coming up next on Inside Sources. Stick around.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
Listen at home on any smart speaker.
And in your car at 102.7 FM.
This is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dale Spalding. KSL's top story this hour. A search and rescue is underway in the mountains near Kive Road in Utah County. The county sheriff's office confirmed a plane has crashed. We have a reporter on the way and will provide details as soon as we get them. The House will be voting soon on a new spending bill to keep the government working after this Friday's deadline. We'll keep you informed as we learn more. American Indian and Alaska Native relatives account for over 5% of all murder victims, but they make up less than 2% of our population. A task force created 3 years ago to improve these numbers is being heard in a committee meeting on Capitol Hill today.
The takeaway from today's meeting is communication between Indigenous tribes and law enforcement is vital. And whilst it's improved over the last 3 years with this task force, this space could still improve. Director of Indian Affairs in Utah, Dustin Jansen, told me a database that helps different jurisdictions keep up with fresh information would also be a step in the right direction because many of these crimes cross different county lines.
KSL News Radio's Hugo Ricard Bell with those details. Indigenous people make up 1.5% of Utah's population, but over 5% of the murders. Funeral arrangements are now set for President M. Russell Ballard, acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The service will be held in the Tabernacle on Temple Square this Friday at 11 a.m. The funeral is open to the public for ages 8 and older. There will not be a public viewing. You'll be able to hear the services live right here on KSL News Radio. Your money at this moment, the Dow is up 489 points, NASDAQ is up 326, and the S&P 500 is up 84 points. Coming up, we'll get highs in the upper 60s today. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 201, excuse me.
Early mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
Is shopping for medical supplies online leaving you feeling intimidated and overwhelmed? Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical. I want to share a real customer story with you.
The moment I walked into Alpine, I felt cared for. They pulled me into a private room, and the Alpine professional happily set up my CPAP machine, explaining everything I needed to know. The service didn't stop there. After I went home, Alpine called me a week later just to check on me. These guys really are the experts. Before Alpine, I was so stressed trying to navigate what I needed online by myself, but all the stress went away when I went to their store. They really do deserve 5 stars.
We know when you walk through our doors, you deserve to be cared for. Stop by any of our 11 locations and discover the Alpine Home Medical difference. When you need assistance, we're here for you.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
AlpineHomeMedical.com.
The Zero Res Food Drive is on. All this month, schedule a cleaning with Zero Res Carpet Cleaning, make a donation at the time of service, and you'll pay just $25 per room. Each year, Zero Res collects between 2,000 and 3,000 pounds of food during the food drive. And with your help this year, they could do even more. Zero Res is the only no-residue carpet cleaner in the area. With their ZR water, there's no soaps, no shampoos, and no residue left behind, so your carpets stay cleaner longer. Plus, with a no-residue cleaning, you don't have to worry about any nasty chemicals left behind either. Zero Res is safe for people, pets, and the planet. Schedule your cleaning today. The $25 sale ends today. You don't have to clean today, but you do have to get on the schedule. $25 per room for a Zero Res carpet cleaning when you clean in November and participate in the Zero Res Food Drive. But this rate is only good if you schedule before the end of the day today. For more info, restrictions, and to schedule, visit ZeroRes.com. Common Spirit Holy Cross Hospitals carry the legacy of its namesake and care for northern Utah's communities as part of 20 hospitals and 240 clinics across Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Visit holycrossutah.org.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
A good drive on the Valley freeways. We have a crash at 90th South, 2700 West, and the final cleanup of an injury accident. Indiana Avenue at Navajo Street, that's 850 South, 1350 West. Cypress Credit Union has the ease and expertise for all your business needs. Ask Cypress about payroll and HR resources, payment processing systems, lending needs, and more. Visit cypresscu.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather today will be sunny with highs in the upper 60s. Tomorrow will cool down a little bit with some clouds in the afternoon. Right now it's 64 and sunny in Salt Lake City. I'm Dale Spaulding, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Yesterday, justices of the Supreme Court released a series of ethics guidelines that they will adopt and officially adhere to. The ethics code has been made available to the public as part of an effort to improve public opinion of the nation's highest court and get some transparency in terms of what the expectations are. The headline, of course, is that this code is meaningful change that will determine and hopefully buttress the right kind of behavior for the future justices. The question beyond the headlines is this optics? Is this messaging? Is this rebranding? It's time to think again. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
When it comes to the highest court of the land, it has always been the highest court in the land when it comes to public opinion. It has long been the most trusted institution in government. When you compared it, of course, to either the executive branch or the legislative branch, the Supreme Court has usually had a much higher trust factor and believability rating. But that has slipped in recent years. And, of course, with some of the things that have broken in the news in terms of gifts and travel, it ultimately led to an issuing yesterday from the court of a new set of ethics guidelines. And to help us break all that down and take a deeper look in terms of what it is and what it actually means, we always turn to Kelsey Dallas. Of course, she covers a wide range of things for the Deseret News, but is one of the close watchers of the Supreme Court and the courts in general. And, Kelsey, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Boyd.
So give us your high-level sense first, and then we'll kind of dig into some of the details. First blush, high level, what's your headline after looking at what the new guidelines are for the Supreme Court justices?
If I had to write a sort of cheeky headline of what's going on, I would say the Supreme Court has made a smart PR move. And I say that because the justices in an unsigned letter attached to the new Code of Conduct say that they aren't really putting themselves under new restrictions. They're just putting in writing the existing restrictions so that the public sort of cuts them some slack and says, oh, there is a code of conduct.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of an interesting thing that the Chief Justice, John Roberts, said, this is codification of principles that we have long regarded as our governing conduct. And so maybe a little bit of semantics there in terms of what actually is or isn't in there. So does the new code have any real teeth in it, or is, again, this more a PR exercise?
Well, there is really no teeth because there's no enforcement mechanism other than the justices self-reporting violations and maybe, in a sense, policing each other because they aren't subject to some outside investigator saying, oh, wait, I found a problem with how you behaved this one night during a nonprofit dinner. It really is, in most cases, self-reporting.
Yeah, self-reporting and self-recusal in terms of any decisions that would come before the court for someone who provided something, a speaking opportunity or travel or whatever it might be. One of those critics of the court, Senator Whitehouse from Rhode Island, said, look, unless there's some sort of mechanism in there, this is just a lot of fancy window dressing.
Yeah, the self-recusal part is so interesting because a lot of words are dedicated to that issue in the Code of Conduct, but there's a note in that section about how, in most cases, we would want a justice to stay on the case because we want all 9 sort of brains working together on the ruling. And so they're saying even though there might all be these various issues that mean a justice will not be approaching a case in an unbiased manner, at the same time they're saying, but that's really only when it's really extreme. Like otherwise we want you to be part of it.
That's right, because you want to have 9 justices on the case and not 8 or 7 or 6, because then it gets a little dicier in terms of what that decision could ultimately be and what it could ultimately mean. As you look further into it, are there some things in there that are worth some praise? I think one of the questions for me was this was something that only people in law could do, and that is they took something very simple and they turned it into a 14-page document.
Well, it is spelling out a lot of basic ideas. So in the first couple of bullet points, it talks about you should not break the law. You should not discriminate against people based on race, religion, or national origin. And I think one other item. But it is pretty much just common sense, where it says you need to carry yourself well, you need to respect the law, and you need to make sure that your personal relationships are not influencing how you approach your work here on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and now I want to get into kind of the flip side of this in terms of what the court has done. There was some debate and there was a lot of speculation in terms of Congress actually doing something, which also has its own set of risks. If it then just becomes a political thing, then do we really have a separation of powers? As you've seen this kind of play out, as you've watched it from your unique perch, Kelsey, what do you see in terms of that, in terms of Congress's role, in terms of this ethics standards for the Supreme Court and that ultimate separation of powers challenge?
Well, the comments that Democratic lawmakers in particular made about the new ethics codes were fascinating because they clearly weren't satisfied. They didn't think that it went far enough, but they weren't going to come out and say, nope, this isn't good enough, do something else. They really wanted to have a sense of sort of the sacredness of the court or the specialness of Supreme Court justices. So they weren't going to just throw them under the bus. They just said, we need to keep thinking about this. And Senator Durbin said that they still might have a hearing in the Senate with some of the friends of Justice Clarence Thomas who were perhaps taking him on free trips over the years.
Yeah, and I think that's where it gets interesting. So if Senator Durbin moves forward on that kind of hearing, I think this is where it does get really interesting in terms of having that political pressure that always takes place from the congressional side. And if that starts to carry over, or if you start seeing some of these politically driven, targeted hearings, again, regardless of where the justices fall on the political spectrum or which president from which political party appointed them, if they suddenly become targets of these kinds of things, ultimately, will that not further undermine confidence in the court?
That's why I think that lawmakers are being so careful. They don't want to further hurt the public image of the court because the court remains such an important institution, making decisions that no one else has the power to make, sorting out legal issues that are incredibly complex. And so this is a fascinating area to continue watching. And I do believe that the Code of Conduct released yesterday notes that more work will be done at the court, that they'll continue thinking about this.
Yeah, and I do think that's important. And I think I do think the more the court proactively takes on some of these things, and I agree, I think they have more steps that need to be taken in this. But I hope that they do it and it doesn't become a battle between the branches, because then I think we're just doomed to more politics. Kelsey, before I let you go, anything else you're watching or anything else jump out to you that you're going to be keeping your eye on as this progresses?
Well, I don't believe that we've spoken yet about how interesting this term is in terms of religion. So my specialty is cases that focus on free exercise or the establishment of religion. And so far, the court has not taken up any of this term. And as recently as a couple years ago, they had 4 or 5 within a term. And so it's pretty wild that that's where we are. And I'll just be watching to see if they end up adding 1 or 2 by the time we get to June.
And if not, you're going to be making a call and say, hey, I'm watching you.
No, I was joking on social media that they must be taking pity on me with a 6-month-old at home.
That's right. I think rather than having you have to chase 4 to 6 cases, maybe they'll just give you 1 or 2 this time around.
Let's hope so.
All right. Kelsey Dallas covers religion, sports, and, of course, the Supreme Court for the Deseret News. A great thinker and a great writer. Kelsey, thanks for weighing in today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, some good insight there, and this is an important one. I do think it's a good step for the Supreme Court to have moved on this. I think it was a day late and $1 short. I don't think this goes nearly far enough, but it's a good first step. I do applaud members of Congress on both sides of the aisle who are showing a little bit of restraint, a little bit of rare restraint in not jumping all over this, because I do think the more that the court is able to handle this themselves, the less political it will be or become in the future when some might try to use this for purely political positioning or political power. I think that's an important part of the conversation. So half step forward, half step back, maybe a quarter step forward from there, but it's all what we keep our eyes on as we go beyond the headlines here on Inside Sources. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. President M. Russell Ballard.
Part of the history of this church, the great-great-grandson of Hiram Smith.
A life and legacy.
I've met with members of the church all over the world. Oh, how I love you. What a glorious experience that's been to look into your faces.
Remembering the acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on KSL News Radio.
Marie Osmond, an orchestral Christmas. Saturday, December 2nd at Eccles Theater. With special guest David Osmond. Live at the Eccles presents Marie Osmond. An orchestral Christmas, live in concert. Tickets on sale now at liveechoes.com.
Advanced Window Products is having their biggest sale of the year. If your old windows let the winter cold seep in, now's the time to get the highest quality double-pane windows and custom insulated frames. Advanced Window Products is a local company that crafts beautiful precision frames right here in Salt Lake City for 37 years. And the magic is, they cut out the middleman. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. So you save on the highest quality windows and frames. Any style, any color, any questions? Yes, financing. They offer 60-month, 0% financing. They'll even let you put off the first payment up to 2 years, and while that's tempting to think about, the reason to call them right now is the biggest sale of the year. This month only, when they do your entire home of 10 windows or more, you get $3,500 off plus a free premium glass upgrade. So call Advanced Window Products right now, 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or advancedwindowsusa.com.
Hi, this is Doug Wright, and all you have to do is look up to the mountaintops and realize the time of year winter is around the corner. This is the time to start thinking about those holiday gatherings, maybe that reward for your employees, gifts for friends and neighbors, and Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. A gift card at Ruth's Chris really does the trick. Trust me, I have been a recipient. Plus, having that holiday gathering at Ruth's Chris. 2 locations, of course, Hotel Park City. Maybe you'll want to do that after a great day of skiing, or downtown Salt Lake City, maybe after the game or the concert. What a great experience during the holiday season, which now is just around the corner. It awaits you at Ruth's Chris, and you're going to find the best food ever. The steaks are cooked perfectly. The side dishes are beyond compare. And the desserts, oh my goodness. And of course, they have all the other entrees too. It's waiting for you now at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those round trips that you plan in advance, which are perfect on your way there and perfect on your way back? Or those meetings with friends for which you make a group chat 3 months before so that nobody or anything is missing? Or your daughter's first birthday party. You planned it with such dedication that instead of the first, it felt like our 15s. The same way you plan each detail for those moments. Start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dale Spalding. First, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints will host a funeral for President M. Russell Ballard this Friday at 11 a.m. at the Tabernacle. Second, President Joe Biden is looking for an additional $6 billion in funding to combat climate change. Third, Utah is now just 7 days out from Election Day. Polls close at 8 p.m. on Tuesday. Right now it's 64 and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Well, we are going to continue in the dividing the rage from reason category because I just cannot figure out why we can't get to the reason when it comes to what's going on in the United States Senate. Since February of this year, Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville, or Tuberville, depending on where you like to be from, Senator Tuberville's been quote, blocking the regular process to approve military promotions, and that's where everything begins to unravel. Blocking a unanimous consent is different from actually blocking. So the blockade that many people have been screaming about, I think, is more myth than fact, and so we want to dig into that. All of this has led to something happening in our nation's capital right now, and that is the Senate Rules Committee talking about doing a workaround to get beyond, quote, the blockade of Senator Tuberville. Someone who's been helping us navigate this, and someone I wish we could just amplify to the masses and to the media and to the members of the Senate to realize the path to this is super simple, and it's called follow the rules and the process and do your job. And James Wallner, of course, senior fellow at the R Street Institute, he writes about everything from the theory and practice of democratic politics. He is the sage of the Senate. And James, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Great piece today in Legislative Procedure talking about Senate Rules Committee considering those changes to the Senate rules. And I just want you to take a minute as we begin because there's so much hype and hysteria about what Senator Tuberville is doing and what it is holding up versus what the reality is and what the options are of all the senators in the United States Senate to actually get these nominations for these advancements and promotions in the military taken care of.
Absolutely. Well, Senator Tuberville is holding, he has a so-called blanket hold on all Department of Defense nominees, and that now has totaled up to over 400, I understand, military promotions that typically are routine matters that the Senate approves by unanimous consent or voice vote. But Senator Tuberville is objecting to doing that in an effort to get the Department of Defense or to get Democrats in the Senate and at the White House to work with him to change their policy on abortion. So he's trying to use the leverage he has. And the reason why he's in a position to do this is because the Democrats don't want to follow the Senate's rules to confirm these nominees, but instead want to do so by asking unanimous consent to waive those rules and, in essence, adopt a new set of rules to make it easier to confirm them. If they were to follow the Senate's rules, then Tuberville would not be able to object. He would not be able to stop these nominees.
Yeah, and so really the thing that that Senator Tuberville's been doing is saying, look, if you're going to do this and you're not going to deal with my issue or my concern as it relates to abortion policy, then you're going to have to follow the rules and do a vote. And the Senate showed, even just last week, that they can actually do this. They did 4 in one evening last week. And so that, to me, begs the question, why is no one asking the question, well, if you could do it for those 4, why could you not do it for the remaining 340?
Well, they certainly could do it for all of the nominees. And if they had started right when Tuberville put this blanket hold in place, then they would have processed these nominees by now. Because the longer this goes on and the longer they force Tuberville to kind of go through the mechanics of trying to filibuster a bill and then losing, the harder it gets for Tuberville to do so. He may continue to hold out, but he may not hold out. And senators typically will not necessarily back down, but they find that they have other priorities, other things they want to do. But by asking for his permission to consider them and pass them via unanimous consent, it makes it easier for Senator Tuberville to say no.
And so now we have this interesting moment where now you've got in the Rules Committee a proposal that would basically change the rules of the Senate, which the Senate loves to do all the time. And so this new rule, of course, would change the dynamic. But this is interesting to me is that there are a number of Democrats on that committee, the Rules Committee, who are saying this is a bad precedent. Explain that to us.
Well, Democrats will agree. Senators agree that criticize Senator Tuberville that what he's doing, they don't like it, and they agree that they can use the rules to get around it, as you point out. But the problem is that they say that's going to take too much time, as if the Senate didn't spend all its time confirming nominees anyway. I don't know the difference between a military nomination versus a judicial nomination, but it seems like that's what the Senate does today to keep its members in town. But setting that aside, Democrats allege that this will take too long, it'll be too much work, and if they give in to this, either by negotiating with Tuberville over abortion or by actually processing these nominees through according to the rules, that somehow will embolden and empower other senators to pursue their goals on behalf of their constituents in the United States Senate using the rules as leverage. And so therefore, they don't want to do that. They want to adopt a new set of rules, which is what they did today in committee, or at least are proposing to do, that would make it easier for them to process these nominees.
Because heaven forbid that we have senators representing their constituents in the Senate.
That's right.
So as you look at how this plays forward, we're kind of keeping our eye and just seeing if anything's coming out of that particular committee. We're also keeping our eye on the House of Representatives as they get ready to try to vote on this latter approach from Speaker Johnson. As you look at all of this play out, James, you've seen it up close and personal. How do you see this playing forward? And obviously, as we move into an election year next year, everything gets even harder to do. Is this an opportunity in the Senate with these nominations for these promotions in the military? Is this a chance to course correct on some things, to get back to some regular order, to get some things done, or are we just going to see this continue to be held out because both sides say, you know what, this is a good political issue for us, so we're okay with it?
Unfortunately, it looks like the latter. I think one of the things that we've seen time and time again from both parties is that they like to blame the other side for preventing them from doing stuff that they ostensibly can do, but are unwilling to do for a variety of reasons. And when the Senate does try to do something, it creates a carve-out or a workaround. It's not willing to, and both parties, incidentally, are unwilling to use the Senate rules to achieve their goals. We've seen this with Democrats and things on voting rights and abortion policy. Republicans voted just recently to create a filibuster carve-out and an automatic CR that Senator Lankford proposed. Now they're proposing a filibuster carve-out for nominations. And so every time the rules look like they're going to be an obstacle, the senators are going to try to figure out a way around that. And that doesn't bode well because it's the rules that allow senators to participate in the process. The rules are what allow our representatives to go to Washington and use some leverage to adjudicate our concerns and hopefully win a little bit of something that we sent them up there to win. And when we no longer use the rules and, in fact, work around them whenever we can, it becomes an exercise more in kind of brute force, if you will, just who has the raw vote numbers than it does about how well you can maneuver in debate and persuade one another and ultimately compromise.
And I think that's the one thing we all have to watch out for is if we are constantly getting rid of the rules in the name of, quote, we just have to all get along and we just have to get this stuff done, ultimately we all lose because those that we elect to represent us will have no power to represent us because if they do anything that isn't convenient for everyone else, they'll change the rule and just work around us. That's not a good day for the Republic. That's not good for our constitutional democracy. James Wallner, as always, thanks so much for your perspective and helping us keep this one straight in terms of what the actual issue is. James, Senior Fellow at the R Street Institute. James, thanks for jumping on with us today.
Thanks for having me.
It's James Wallner, again, Senior Fellow at the R Street Institute. And that's the thing we have to watch out for, folks, is if there's this constant idea that we have to just abdicate everything in order to get everything done all at once in a convenient and easy way. It's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be convenient for members of Congress. They're supposed to have to debate. They're supposed to have to take hard votes in front of the American people. And so when you hear a lot of the chatter and clamor around Senator Tuberville, you can agree or disagree about his strategy or the policy that he's protesting. but do not buy into the fact that he is stopping all of this. Every single one of those nominees for a promotion in the military could have, would have, and should have been done long before now if the Senate had just followed their own rules and done it. Senator Tuberville could have done nothing to stop it. But instead, both sides decide this is good politics for us, and so we'll continue to have this fake fight and false choice. The rules matter because the rules are what enable your representative to represent you. We'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next. Stick around.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dale Spalding. KSL's top story this hour, a search and rescue is underway in the mountains near Kive Road in Utah County. The county sheriff's office confirmed a plane has crashed there. We have a reporter on the way and we'll provide details as soon as we get them. The House will be voting soon on a new spending bill to keep the government working after this Friday's deadline. We'll keep you informed as we learn more. 3 Utah cities are among the top 10 for the largest drops in housing prices. Provo, St. George, and Logan saw more than a 3% drop in the last quarter compared to a year ago. KSL News Radio's Heather Kelly has more.
A new report from the National Association of Realtors shows just under a fifth of American cities had price drops in the third quarter. Salt Lake City's decrease put it as the 22nd largest, while St. George, Provo, and Logan ranked 6th, 7th, and 8th, respectively.
Experts say the real estate market is still at its least affordable in decades, due in part to increasing mortgage rates. The American Lung Association of Utah just released their 6th annual State of the Lung Cancer Report, revealing Utah's best of the country ranking for lowest lung cancer cases and smokers. But one risk factor in the state remains high.
What oftentimes people don't know is that radon exposure is the number one cause of lung cancer for folks who don't smoke. We partnered with a group called Protect Environmental to offer no-cost radon screenings for your home.
That was Nick Torres with the association. He also expressed the need for screening awareness, saying most cases are treatable if caught early on. Your money at this moment, the Dow is up 489 points, the NASDAQ up 326 points, the S&P 500 up 84 points. Coming up, temperatures will reach up to the 60s today. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:32.
Start your days with knowledgeable, friendly voices telling you about the latest news and weather out there.
Hi, this is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
In the business of waking you up each morning from 5 to 9.
On KSL News Radio.
This is Jeff Stout with Fink & McGregor, Mortgages Made Simple. It's no secret that mortgage rates have risen from historic lows over the last few years. In some cases, having a low mortgage rate can also act as so-called golden handcuffs when homeowners don't want to refinance and lose their rate. One solution to this is a home equity line of credit, or HELOC. HELOCs have higher rate than first mortgages, but they offer flexibility as they are a credit line that can be tapped into as needed. This is a way to take care of financial matters such as debt consolidation, home improvements, medical or college bills, or whatever without losing your current mortgage rate. And when rates come back down, you can refi and take out the HELOC. Call us if this is something you'd like to explore. Fink & McGregor, Mortgages Made Simple, 801-264-9494. That's 264-9494. Or on the web at finkmcgregor.com. NMLS 289115.
It's game time, and you're in the locker room ready to take the field. Suddenly, you notice a player you don't recognize. He's wearing your team's jersey and he even knows your name, but you've never seen him before until now. Would you trust this stranger with your team's playbook? Because that's exactly how phishing scams work. The first quarter of 2022 saw the highest volume of phishing attacks ever recorded. Protect your business with the Les Olson Security Suite from Les Olson IT. Learn more about it at lesolson.com.
Intermountain Medical Center in Murray, LDS Hospital in Salt Lake City, and Utah Valley Hospital in Provo are ranked among the 2023 list for best cancer hospitals in the nation by Newsweek magazine, with a high level of comprehensive personalized care and treatment they provide. Intermountain Cancer Center locations provide an integrated, personalized approach to cancer treatment care, close to home for patients throughout the Intermountain West, as well as telehealth services. Brought to you by Intermountain Health and KSL News Radio.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
Valley Freeway traffic still in really good shape, light volumes and good speeds. We have the final cleanup of a crash at 90th South and 2700 West. Witness the magic of the Nutcracker, opening December 8th with the timeless music of Tchaikovsky, performed live by the Ballet West Orchestra. Tickets at balletwest.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. Right now it's 64 degrees and fair outside. We're dipping down to 44 degrees overnight with a high of 65 tomorrow. I'm Dale Spalding, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, after last week's elections, the Democrats across the country have been feeling pretty good about their chances going into 2024. But as always, you have to look underneath the headlines of all of those. And last week's wins may provide some good cover for President Biden, but it also might cover up some of the vulnerabilities he faces going into a presidential election. This is one of those things I would always say in the business consulting space, that cash flow covers a multitude of problems inside an organization. Sometimes winning covers a multitude of problems in a team, in an organization, or even in a political party or a political campaign. I know there's been many on the Democratic side of the aisle who have felt very good and very emboldened coming out of last week's election, saying, see, this proves that we're on path, we're connected with the American people and moving forward. I've heard other insiders say, not so fast, be careful, because sometimes that winning may be something different than you think. It may not be because of you, it might be in spite of you. So we wanted to get beyond the headlines to all that to see what's really going on underneath the numbers. And as we often do, we turn to Carly Cooperman, CEO and partner at Schoen Cooperman Research. She spoke to Inside Sources earlier this morning about some of President Biden's vulnerabilities despite Democrats' big wins last week.
Election day was a good night for Democrats, and I think both Democrats and Republicans were kind of surprised by the extent of what happened. We saw between Ohio and Kentucky and Virginia that the issue of abortion rights, there's something that matters to people. It matters to independents. It matters to suburban voters. And I think it's an issue that's going to continue to play in the 2024 election. That being said, it does not take away from the challenges that Joe Biden is facing, and they're very real, and they're going to continue into next year, and they're going to be challenges that he's going to have to be addressed. So first, we're looking at, broadly speaking, Biden continues to suffer from low favorability, low approval ratings. People are not happy with the job he's doing. But moreover, it's really tied to the economy, because despite the fact that we see some strong metrics around the economy, we are not in a recession right now. Unemployment is low. Job growth is strong. The economy is much better than it was when Biden took office. Voters have continued to give him very negative ratings on the economy because they're not feeling the economic benefits that he is trying to tout. And, from their perspective, their cost of living is still high. Gas prices are high. Inflation is still there. Interest rates, all of these things that are impacting their day-to-day life make them feel unhappy with Biden's handling of the economy. And moreover, almost this disconnect is frustrating to voters because, Biden's trying to communicate, no, look and see these benefits, while at the same time, I think that's even more frustrating to voters because they don't feel it. So for better or for worse, the president is held and tied to the economy. And so as long as this continues, this is going to be a challenge he faces. And additionally, the war in Israel is dividing the Democratic Party. Right now, majorities of Americans broadly support Israel's right to defend itself. But as this war goes on, as the casualties continue to become uneven, there's already divide in the Democratic Party, and surely there's going to be challenges to Biden's strong support in terms of defending Israel. And it's going to be something that he's going to have to face, both in terms of appeasing his party and just generally fatigue that Americans may or may not start to feel if this drags on, in addition to the war in Ukraine, in terms of giving funding to these countries and weapons and support. And so that is something, especially as it relates to Israel, that it's too soon to tell, but it's certainly going to play out over the next 4 to 6 months. And then the last point I'll make is that in terms of the 2024 presidential race, the polls coming out are not good for Biden. It is still very early, but what we're seeing with these emergence of third-party candidates are real concerns for the Biden administration, because even though these are not real viable threats from a perspective of winning enough electoral college votes to become president, these are all people who can take away votes from Joe Biden and tip the scale to Donald Trump, and that could be very harmful for Biden.
So 3 really important things coming out there from Carly Cooperman: the low approval ratings regarding the economy, and I think this has been the big test for the president. The war in Israel is dividing the Democratic Party. That undercuts some of that enthusiasm. And then, of course, the third-party candidates that we've been talking about, and as Carly rightly pointed out. So we wanted to unpack a little bit of that with Carly, and so we asked her about the messaging as it relates to the economy. While the president can point to some very positive things, as Carly explained earlier, he also has a challenge in that what the American people are feeling around the kitchen table doesn't quite square with the way the president is communicating or talking about the economy. Here's how Carly explained it.
From voters' perspectives, until life feels affordable again, it's going to be really hard to turn their opinions that, hey, Biden's economic plans are working, or that Biden is doing a good job on the economy. In terms of messaging, look, like, it's a very hard position for Biden. There's so much out of his control, but I think the point is that he needs to acknowledge voters' struggles and feel their pain more, rather than just trying to promote the strong parts of the economy, because it's falling flat. And so there still needs to be more of a connection that's like, I hear you, I understand, I know this is hard, and here's what we're trying to do, and this is a work in progress, and this is something that we're focused on and working on. I think he just needs to be connecting to voters more on those issues.
So I agree with Carly on that the president has to make a different kind of connection point and recognize that the American people are consumers. The American people are not economists. And so whether you say that things are still going up in price, but it's going up in price slower, that does not mean anything to an American citizen or family sitting around the kitchen table trying to figure out how to get groceries and gas and all the other things that their family needs. So again, pure messaging, regardless of where you fall on the political scale, the president has got to shift the message in terms of what he's doing and what the American people are actually feeling. Still fine for him to tout the good things in the economy. That's fine. But if he doesn't make the connection to what the American people are living, he's living in a fantasy land that will be part of what Carly had described as kind of that undercurrent that may not be in his favor rolling into 2024. Now, we also asked Carly how the president balances this criticism within the Democratic Party when it comes to Israel and the broad public support for Israel at this point in the program.
It's important for him to hear the different voices in his own party that he is representing. I think, broadly speaking, reflecting the voice of the American public in terms of its big picture support for Israel is what he's doing and is more important right now. But as things go on, the calls on the far left for a ceasefire, to stop the fighting, the violence, depicting Israel in an oppressive manner that doesn't necessarily reflect like the full politics of the issue, I think those voices are going to grow louder. And I do think Biden is trying to acknowledge those voices too. He is not in agreement with everything that Netanyahu was saying, right? Like he was calling for the humanitarian pauses to let aid and people flow in and out of Gaza. I do think he's trying to strike a bit of a balance, but at the end of the day, I do not think Biden is going to try to truly appease to the fringe voices in the party, which really fall out of the mainstream of American public sentiments.
In our conversation with Carly Cooperman, we talked about the threat of a third-party candidate. That was the third element that she raised as we began the conversation with Inside Sources. And we asked Carly what that actually tells us about voters and if President Biden should be concerned about someone like a Joe Manchin on the ballot.
I think what we're seeing with these third-party candidates and with interest in running in the third party does speak to dissatisfaction with the two current candidates, both Trump and Biden. Some of these challengers that you're seeing from the left who are exploring the third party lane, it definitely reflects dissatisfied voters and dissatisfied Democrats who don't want Biden to run for re-election. Joe Manchin definitely has a stronger presence, than Jill Stein, for instance, and there are talks that he's exploring that centrist lane. And I think he's interested, but he's also said before that, he's not interested in just being a spoiler. He's aware of the impact of that sort of thing.
In 2024.
The counter narrative is that at the end of the day, there is the belief that if it really is a choice between Donald Trump and Joe Biden next November, despite weak ratings for Biden, there are some people that will come back and vote for him as the alternate to Trump. But it's not a clear path yet at this point to get there because there really are some significant hurdles ahead.
Always appreciate Carly Cooperman's insight. Carly's the CEO and partner at Schoen Cooperman Research. They always do an extraordinary job of getting us beyond the headlines and just the top line numbers into what's underneath all of those. And so, again, while last week was a very good week for Democrats at the ballot box, as Carly Cooperman pointed out, there are things underneath that everyone needs to keep an eye on, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, that the president's low approval ratings on the economy are going to be an impact. The war in Israel and global events are always going to have an impact. And then will this be a year where third-party candidates are viable? And if they are either viable to win or viable as a spoiler, that will be yet to be determined as well. And how many, as Carly pointed out, would return back to the fold, either Republican or Democrat, if it were just a straight choice between former President Trump and current President Joe Biden. So many things to look at underneath the numbers. That's why we turn to our inside sources, especially Carly Cooperman and Schoen Cooperman Research. All right, we'll step aside for one last break. When we come back, some final thoughts on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
From graduating in East High Leopard.
He owned Utah's first Edsel dealership, which turned out to be short-lived.
To a world religious leader.
He worked hand in hand with people of their faith in particularly charitable ways.
Treated everybody with such dignity and respect, constantly introducing people to the church.
He was quite visionary. Yeah. It's hard to imagine him not being here.
We honor and remember the life of President M. Russell Ballard on this station, KSL News Radio.
Guys, your promise is your word, right? You stick by it, you live by it. So does Revive Men's Health with our Revive Promise for low T and ED. The Revive Promise means your tests and lab work are free when you begin treatment, and our low T and ED treatments are money back guaranteed. Yes, that's right. We stand behind our treatments and our results. That's our promise to you. Revive Men's Health has successfully helped thousands of men with low T, ED, and sexual health issues since 2011. If you're experiencing symptoms like chronic low energy, less drive, sleep issues, weight gain, poor performance, bad moods, or ED, you need Revive. Don't settle. Get affordable, guaranteed custom low T and ED solutions with lasting results from Salt Lake City's favorite men's clinic. And remember, there are no extra bills when you begin treatment. All labs and tests are free, and your low T and ED treatments are money-back guaranteed. Call Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City today to schedule your appointment. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Food brings people together, but for many families, figuring out where their next meal is coming from is a challenge. 1 in 10 children struggle with hunger in Utah. No one should have to go hungry, especially children. Macy's has partnered with local food banks for the 2023 Harvest of Hope food drive to help keep that from happening. From now through November 30th, you can help a family in need. It's easy. At the checkout, simply let your cashier know how much you would like to donate through Macy's Icon Drive. You can also purchase a prepackaged bag of food filled with the items that food banks need most. Every donation, regardless of size, makes a difference. If you prefer to shop online, you can donate to the Harvest of Hope this season from the comfort of your home by adding either of Macy's donation options to your online shopping cart at macys.com/online. If you'd like to track the progress of donations made toward the Utah Food Bank or learn more about Harvest of Hope, visit macys.com. Macy's. Happy shopping.
Because we have had the Connecticut soft water system in our home for years and years, as a matter of fact, 2 different homes, I can tell you that it really is so much better than other water softeners, hands down. I love it because it makes a bag of salt last 3 times longer than the systems of competitors. It gives you wonderful, luxurious soft water you can count on 24/7. And when you're dealing with these folks, you're going to love. You'll find out that there are no nonsense, no loopholes, 10-year warranty. You feel like you've really found friends, and you find yourself really in soft water heaven. Connecticut of Utah. If your system doesn't sound like the one I just described, I want you to call Monty. I want you to call Steve. The great people, all of them there at Connecticut, will take care of you. 801-576-8600, or go online at softwaterutah.com.
Attention smart homeowners. You don't have to fall for flashy promises and companies that don't even prove their work. At Your Service Pros uses third-party verification software called MeasureQuick to ensure your new HVAC system is installed correctly. This ultimate game changer in the HVAC industry lets you, the homeowner, have proof of how your system was installed. At Your Service Pros utilizes our Bluetooth tools to upload all of your system's information into MeasureQuick. We rely on data-driven insights to properly commission, optimize, and fine-tune your HVAC system for peak performance, improving your family's comfort, lowering your utility bills, and extending the life of your HVAC system. With rebates and tax credits available totaling more than $7,500 on a dual fuel heating and cooling system, it is now more important than ever that your HVAC system be installed correctly. So call us today at 801-YOUR-PRO. That's 801-YOUR-PRO. Have the peace of mind of saving up to 50% on your new system and knowing it's installed correctly by calling 801-YOUR-PRO.
It's the season of giving at Murdoch Hyundai. Right now, get 0% for 5 years on Tucson or Santa Fe. When you walk through the doors, you feel like family at Murdoch Hyundai in Logan, Linden, Murray, or online at murdochhyundai.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dale Spalding. First, a search and rescue is underway in the mountains near Kive Road, where Utah County Sheriff's Office confirmed a plane has crashed. Second, a family member of 2 people injured along I-80 is speaking out, saying they were hurt while trying to help someone on the side of the freeway. Both are still in the hospital. Third, President M. Russell Ballard's funeral will be hosted at the Tabernacle on Temple Square beginning at 11 a.m. this Friday. Right now it's 64 degrees and clear in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and as we round out the program today, we're continuing to keep our eye on everything going on in our nation's capital today. The vote in the House of Representatives on a short-term government funding bill that would avoid the potential government shutdown that the countdown clock says will happen at midnight on Friday. Not going to happen. Put your panic button away. We're just doing same song, different chorus when it comes to these kind of fake fights and false choices. So we are watching this new ladder approach that was put forward by the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. We have also heard from the Senate side of the Capitol that both Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer and Republican Mitch McConnell have said they would support it and that they would bring it to the floor and that they would get that passed, averting a potential government shutdown and, in essence, doing a 2-step kicking of the can down the road. I'm not quite sure what that looks like, but I'm sure they will figure that out. But it would lead to a different kind of conversation. And it's nice to see even just a little bit of unity in terms of, okay, let's avoid the drama between now and the end of the year. And then when we get to January, let's start a new kind of conversation following the process in regular order to get those funding bills all done on time, on schedule, in committee, both houses of Congress and onto the president's desk. The other thing we've been watching in our nation's capital today, of course, has been the rally there in Washington, D.C. For Israel and against anti-Semitism. and some really interesting conversations in all of that. I want to go back to part of what we talked about earlier in the program. On MSNBC on Friday, Imam Shamsi Ali of the Jamaica Muslim Center reminded everyone that we're all human and that we have much more in common than we think.
For me, anti-Semitism is my fight, as he have taken Islamophobia as his fight. You know, we advance our common humanity, that despite of the existence differences that we have even more in common. And at the end of the day, we are all human beings. We deserve dignity, we deserve respect, we deserve peace, reconciliation. And I think this world is shared by each and every one of us. We need just to live peacefully. And that's our aspiration, that's our dream.
I love that from Imam Shamsi Ali. He was speaking with Rabbi Schneider as they link arms. And I love this idea that the Imam had said anti-Semitism is my fight, and that the rabbi had said Islamophobia is my fight. I think that's so important as we look at dignity and respect. Also important to keep in mind a conversation we had over the weekend on KSL TV's Sunday edition. We were talking with Rabbi Dave Hirschfield, and I asked him about the relationship between the conflict in Israel and the feelings of anger and anti-Semitism rising in our own communities. And Rabbi Hirschfield spoke about an interaction he had with a protester who was tearing down posters with the faces of hostages.
It's interesting how these events that happen thousands of miles away surface things about our own feelings, and they apply across the board. They have to do with people not going down the rabbit hole of self-justifying polarizations so they can feel good about themselves, which is, I think, exactly what goes on. There's the example of people, and it's still going on, where people are tearing down posters in public of the kidnapped victims. I happened to be in a situation with someone who was doing it. And yes, I felt a certain kind of rage. I said, no, I'm going to do this differently. And I said, you know what? I'm sure we agree about nothing. Can you explain to me why you're tearing down that poster? And they started to scream at me about Israel. I said, okay, I get that. We don't agree. That's fine. I'm asking you again. You're tearing down the poster of an 8-year-old little girl who was kidnapped out of her home by armed terrorists. Why are you tearing that down? And she got very quiet, the woman who was tearing down the poster. And I realized something with perfect clarity, and this comes back to a lot of the fights we have in this country about a whole bunch of things. We don't take the positions we take because of the thing we claim we take it for. She was tearing down those posters because looking at the faces of the kidnapped victims reminded her of the failed policies of the people she had previously supported and still supported.
Wow.
And it was a reminder that she had supported the wrong people in the wrong way, and this is what it wrought. And those faces of the kidnapped were a reminder to her of the mistake she made. And so I think what happens is we get into these places and we have these knee-jerk reactions on all bunches of issues, right, left, center. And the example I give is when you go to the doctor and they tap your knee, and your knee jerks, right? It reflexes out. That reaction isn't because of the doctor or because of their hammer. It's because of your knee. So the first thing I would suggest to anyone in a moment of polarization, before you assess how it's the other person, ask yourself what buttons it's pushing in you and why.
Self-justification